this presentation is about race, class, access, gender, and equity. This is about inclusive leadership. Inclusive leadership, let's move towards a definition. Inclusive leadership is different from diversity. Diversity is a component of inclusive leadership, but diversity and inclusive leadership are not the same thing. Diversity is the mix. It is the mingling of different strands of thinking into a common thread. These different strands derive their variance from the heterogeneity of culture, lifestyle, gender, race, ethnicity, and simple perspective. Diversity is different from the word inclusiveness. Inclusiveness refers to the act of making diversity work. Inclusiveness is working together within a diverse environment or context to achieve better outcomes. This is not simply about being different. This is about valuing others and valuing diversity. Inclusiveness is not a state of being like diversity. It is a mindset or a culture. Inclusive leadership refers to having a passion for difference enough that you make diversity safe. This is probably the most important idea. The inclusive leader creates the culture of diversity by managing the friction and dissent that can arise in a diverse environment. Inclusive leaders are unafraid of the foreign. In fact, inclusive leadership is functionally blind to foreignness. Inclusive leadership doesn't happen by accident. There is a constant search for better outcomes through harmonious cooperation. You can't teach inclusive leadership, really. You can encourage it, but it can't be completely taught, as this is a mindset. You have to want to be an inclusive leader, and you have to want to make different safe. Okay. From Kouzes and Posner, there are a couple interesting quotes. This is from an anecdote of an individual who had experienced inclusive leadership. It was interesting that team members were genuinely interested in what others had discovered and how that connected with information they had gathered. This comes from page 278. In another instance in the book, the authors quote an individual who says, "Shukriya," which means thank you in Hindi. "You've done an awesome job," was the first thing I read in the morning, says Meghana Mehta. This was an email sent to her by Beth, her indirect manager from Citibank. It's on page 287. Clearly, Beth had really gone the extra mile here and tried to learn how to say hello in Hindi. Hindi is a very difficult language. It's different, very different, obviously, from English, and you can assume that her name is Beth. She works at Citibank. She's probably not a native Hindi speaker, so it really shows that she went the extra mile. And I think from the example, obviously, Kouzes and Posner point to the fact that Meghana is very appreciative, not only of the appreciation for her work, but of her culture and language. Inclusive leadership is also known as relational leadership theory, or is incorporated under the umbrella of relational leadership theory. I found this quote in my research in the book Exploring Leadership. Being inclusive means understanding, valuing, and actively engaging diversity in views, approaches, styles, and aspects of individuality, such as sex or culture, that add multiple perspectives to a group's activity. So in other words, inclusive leadership is about relationships, and in a higher education context, which is where I work, you want to establish relationships based on communication and trust. Inclusive leadership at New Mexico Junior College, which is where I work, is an interesting thing. In my workplace, it's a small community college. It's about an hour and a half from the nearest major town. The town where the college is located is 50% Hispanic. There's a ton of influence in New Mexico from Pueblo and Navajo and other Native American peoples and mindsets. I have an employee who is Native American. I have another who's Hispanic. So we're always kind of trying to incorporate, especially with all of them, trying to incorporate their viewpoints and wisdom, cultural wisdom in many cases, because you can get some really, really great ideas coming out of people who've had different backgrounds. And at New Mexico Junior College, we work with a lot of faculty. We have some tutors. It's a tutoring center that I manage, and our tutors go into classes with faculty. So our faculty is a pretty eclectic bunch. These are some interesting people. Lots of very different viewpoints. Not everybody always gets along. So from my perspective, in order to do my job correctly, I really have to show people that I'm authentic, that I mean what I say. And I try to get to know everybody and be very everybody reciprocates, but really it's important that I just keep doing it. And that to me is inclusive leadership in the Mexico junior colleges. Is always being open and smiling and being engaged and enthusiastic and showing that about new ideas and different ideas, and trying to understand people, trying to anticipate where they're coming from. If you come across somebody who's not in a great mood, you want to try to understand why that might be. A lot of times in the mail room, things get pretty hectic, so you go over there. Not everybody's always smiling. I'm super happy, but you got to keep the smile on your face and try to understand where they're coming from and say hello. Ask about their day. This is inclusive leadership. Okay, that brings us to the Weyerhaeuser definition. Inclusive leadership in the Weyerhaeuser video. They talk about it, valuing different perspectives and experiences. Inclusive leadership respects, welcomes, invites, collaborates, encourages, and engages. Creates an environment where all parties can perform to their full potential. The goal of inclusive leadership is to retain and energize. You want to value unique contributions so that you can build an organization that innovates, because innovation doesn't come from single-minded, sort of singular view. Diverse viewpoints are what create innovation. So you want collaboration, respect, and engagement in order to get to that innovation. You want to make people feel like they're making a difference, retain and energize. Inclusive leaders, these are some things inclusive leaders do, or these are characteristics of inclusive leaders. They inspire trust, make people feel happy. They make people feel that their voices are heard and that they can bring their whole selves to work and to their performances and not be afraid or shy or embarrassed about who they are. Non-inclusive leadership. Communication is short-circuited. This is what happens when you're not an inclusive leader. Communication is short-circuited. Non-inclusive leadership is command and control. It's telling people what to do. It's directed in nature. And a lot of times you see morale decline. People don't feel empowered. So you don't see a lot of leadership in a non-inclusive leadership environment. Talent recognizes this, so you lose good people, and there's distrust. Non-inclusive leadership is not approachable. Communication, again, if you're not approachable, no one's going to be able to communicate with you. If you can't communicate, you can't have inclusive leadership. You can't be including different perspectives if you're not communicative. In non-inclusive leadership, as a result of this, if there's you're not approachable, or there's no communication, there's a lot of misunderstanding. And as a result, people tend to become detached, they lose motivation, there could be conflict, you have less desirable outcomes, lack of respect for unique backgrounds, and lack of equity in relationships, which is really important. You want people to feel equally valued and on an even playing field with everyone else. Inclusive leaders make you passionate, they keep you focused. So this getting away from the non-inclusive leadership, the inclusive leader is going to make you, it's going to inspire passion. So it's a little bit of the transformational leadership theory, where you try to inspire your employees and bind their kind of goals and mission to the institutional mission. But you're doing that here by making them feel included, despite any differences, and actually making those differences feel like they're not differences at all. Not everyone has to be involved in every decision in inclusive leadership, but those who are impacted should be involved. That's an important part of the definition of inclusive leadership. And you're going to want to take time to reach out to people. So you're going to ask, when you pass somebody on the way to your building, how are you doing? How was your day? And then do it genuinely, not just this kind of rote repetition of how you engage with other people on a board kind of basis. Inclusive leaders encourage ownership of situations. So it's really important that real leaders actually make leaders of other people without them even knowing them in some cases. So by making people feel like they can take ownership, you are creating an inclusive leadership situation. You want to bring out the best solutions from your team. So inclusive leaders are looking for, it doesn't matter who the opinion comes from. It could be the janitor. You could be running a tutoring center like myself, and maybe the janitor has a suggestion about how to move the desks or tables around. You want to make these people feel like their contribution is valued, because that's how you get to the best solution to problems. You're going to be attracting the best talent if you're inclusive of people. You need to respect. That's really important. Listen and value contributions of every individual. Inclusive leaders create competitive advantages by valuing everyone equally and their diverse perspectives within an organization such that the best ideas are free to percolate up to the surface. The biggest challenges of inclusive leadership? Well, diversity brings difference. So, again, you're trying to make that safe. You want people to feel like they can express themselves, and so you want to control conflict. Criticism needs to be managed. You, as an inclusive leader, often have to confront personal biases you may not have realized existed. And this can be uncomfortable sometimes. Managing diverse perspectives means managing criticism and argument, as diversity guarantees a certain level of disagreement. I mean, that's the very definition of diversity. That there's difference, but it needs to make it. You need to make everyone feel like they're not different. It's complex. Okay, thank you very much. That's my presentation on the inclusive